Lake County Board of Commissioners. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority, and may we use it in our directives for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Pletchnik.
Present.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. Okay, let's see. This brings us to our first public comment portion of our meeting. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the board? Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Lima.
Morning, Commissioners. Dave Lima, 7774 Litchfield Drive in Mentor. I want to share with you a comment that recently appeared in the Plain Dealer. I share the views of Zaria Davis, Senior Associate at the Pretrial Justice Institute in Baltimore. It is relevant information and position relative to our recent discussions concerning the Ohio jail population. Ohio is on the verge of monumental change in its pretrial process. A broad array of supporters, including Ohio Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor, members of both parties in both chambers of the state legislature, have come together to say enough is enough. Under two companion bills, Senate Bill 182 and House Bill 315, Ohio would no longer incarcerate or free people based on how much money they have, and anyone who is not released immediately would receive a prompt hearing. Ending the broken monetary bond system is not a liberal or a conservative idea or a big city or small town problem. Fixing the pretrial process so that people are not jailed for being poor is something we all agree on. Pretrial liberty is part of our right to the presumption of innocence. When people are free before trial, they can participate in their legal defense and not endure the pressure to plead in order to obtain freedom. It is estimated that Ohioans would save $199 to $264 million per year by releasing more people promptly. The widespread spectrum of support for pretrial reform is promising because it gives us an opportunity to establish a new culture of justice. Incarcerating fewer people depends on as much on the law as the people who carry out the laws. For example, New Jersey, from 2015 and 2018, their pretrial jail population fell 43.9%, with no increase in pretrial arrest rates and a continued high court appearance rate. When people are arrested for problems that would be better solved through mental health or substance use care, we are asking the criminal legal system to handle a problem it was not built for and failing to pursue long-term solutions. If we want safe communities, we also need to work beyond the immediate issues of arrest and release and look to broader solutions that invest in community resources as identified by the community. That would be true for pretrial justice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Is there anyone else in the audience? Sir, Mr. Massey.
Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive in Concord. We have been reviewing the property tax collected, and we did receive the Schedule A from the auditor's office. I just wanted to make sure, I'm sure the commissioners are probably aware of these numbers. I want to make sure that the public is aware of the numbers. For the tax year 2020, collection year 2021, the total valuation of our property that is assessed, the property tax, is $6.4 billion. And as you know, there's two millages, one inside and the other outside. There's only two entities that are participating in the inside millage. The Metro Parks and the General Fund. Metro Parks gets $600,000 a year, $603,000. General Fund gets $6 million. The total collection of inside and outside millage is $91.5 million a year. However, the general fund, as a percentage of that total, is only getting 6.6%, $6 million. The biggest benefactor of the property taxes in Lake County is the Deepwood Center. They get $26.2 million, which is 28.7%. Lakeland Community College gets $19.6 million, 21%, and Metro Parks gets $7.1 million. Adams boards get 8.9 or 9.8%. I just mentioned this because there is some discussion about the jail and some inside millage. We're trying to come up with some suggestions for the commissioners to take a look at, but I just want everybody to know that we do know the numbers of what's being collected. So I just wanted to pass that along to you and to the citizens in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just one other thing that I asked that you also consider is local government funds that come to us from the state of Ohio. 89% of those local government funds that flow to Lake County go directly out to the local communities. Lake County, 11 cents on every dollar is all that we keep. So I want to be real clear on that.
Thank you. And that's probably some research that we need to pursue, because my understanding of local government funds is that the percentage or the allocation of those funds was established many years ago, and it would be great if we could take a look at that allocation percentage, and does it seem to make sense in today's the way the population is spread today versus where it was before. So if one community is getting excessive amount, I'm just wondering, is it possible to change the allocation of local government funds? Is it feasible, or is not politically possible?
Wow, you're really good at catch-22 questions. There is a formula, and it would be, in my opinion, impossible to make it work because there's veto power. You would have to have the largest city agree to it, and you'd have the percentages. It's something that we're locked into. That I'm.
So Mender's driving the bus, as they say.
Well, your words, not mine, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. We will pursue that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Jason, or anybody else in the audience wishing to address the board? Jason, did you have any electronic submissions of comments?
We do not.
Jason Boyd, County Administrator, indicating none. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're moving on to resolutions, but I'd like to draw to the attention on the resolutions. Item number 10 is being withdrawn and will not be considered at this meeting. And with that being noted, Madam Clerk, if you would please proceed with the resolutions.
In the Utilities Department, resolution approving plans, specifications, and estimates of cost in the amount of $191,753.90 for East Island Drive Water Main Improvements, Project 450W.
Second.
And discussion. Randy, can we have a little background on this? I believe this is part of the routine maintenance, the long-range planning. But what's the little bit of the history on this?
Sure, yeah, this is actually part of our capital improvement plan for 2021. It was moved up because East Lake is participating in this project. They're doing the design, paying for the design of the project, and also some of the roadway. So it moved up, and it's going to help that area down there. They've got some low fire flow, so they wanted to, as Eastlake was interested in having that project done.
So it's just also, in addition to improving water quality, water flow, it's also a safety issue, and Eastlake's being a good partner on this.
Absolutely, yep.
Commissioner Plechnik, I believe you have comments there.
Mr. President, so if I'm not mistaken, East Island Drive, that's the little peninsula in the river with the New Chagrin Tavern and the small residential neighborhood.
Correct, yep.
So this is going to allow that small district to continue to thrive there.
Exactly.
It really has gotten a lot of attention. I don't know how many of you have seen the newspaper articles, but I believe even Geraldo Rivera visited on his yacht there. So it's really a beautiful little development, and I'm glad to see that we're maintaining it.
I have one general question.
Yes, please,
Randy,
Commissioner.
How much is there, can you give me a percentage as to how much of the monies of your group is spent on these projects that are long-term planning, let's say? You probably don't have that many emergency projects. But the bulk of it is the long-term, just keeping things running so we don't get some blip where we're suddenly various projects and out of money, I believe. But is there some kind of a percentage?
Oh, your microphone's not on, sir.
Okay. Some kind of a percentage that's allocated toward the long-term planning as opposed to just something in reserve for emergencies and special projects?
Yeah, I could talk for several hours on this actually, if you wanted me to. But
We can order lunch.
in general, yeah, we prefer to do preventative maintenance on all of our infrastructure. I think everybody prefers that. There are things that happen that are unforeseen, that are emergency repairs, that we have to react very quickly. But in general, these projects take about a year to design and plan, and then we generally build them the following year. As far as the percentage, in order to maintain our system with these pipes that last about 75 years, typically the useful life, we have to replace about 1.5% of that pipe every year just to keep up.
Wow.
To keep the system in working condition. That's not, you never get ahead by replacing 1.5%. 1.5% is we've got about 550 miles of pipe in our water system. So 1.5% comes out to about 8 miles or so of pipe that we have to replace every year. Right now, the going rate for replacing pipe is about $1 million a mile. So that puts us at about $8 million every year that we at some point will need to spend in order to maintain this system. Fortunately, our system is fairly young. Most of the pipe was put in post World War II, so we're at 60, 70 years, but we're approaching that 75-year useful life. So over the next half a dozen or so years, we're going to need to increase that rate of replacement to get up to that 7 or 8 miles of pipe every year. We do take advantage of grants and loans that are available through the state and other agencies to try to get towards that number, but we'll continue to make sure that we're approaching that number so we don't end up with a lot of emergency repairs.
Yeah. Never heard of a problem with Lake County. Just, you're really up on it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And just to add to what Commissioner Young was referencing, as far as emergencies, there are contingency funds in place?
Correct. Yeah, there are. We have as part of our budget, as part of our carryover, we always have enough money to cover whatever any emergencies that we could have, significant catastrophes. We make sure that the monies are available to cover anything that might happen.
And the utilities debt load is, by comparison to other organizations, relatively low. You do have borrowing capability if some incredibly unforeseen incident were to occur.
We're in a good place financially right now, yes.
And something that also should be mentioned as far as emergency repairs, there are seasonal factors that play into this. Frozen ground, you might want to talk about how that causes pipes to break heavy traffic, direct energy being transferred to pipes.
Right, yeah, we have anywhere from 150 to 250 breaks every year, where there's just local breaks that we have a maintenance crew, 3 maintenance crews on the west end and 1 on the east end that go out and respond very quickly to those breaks. Typically, the water's shut off for a very short period of time, and we're able to make those breaks relatively quickly. But you know, when we get multiple breaks in an area or we have low flows, then they end up on that replacement list and then get done accordingly.
And again, just to flesh this out, we do have the ability to self-perform many of these acts, but we also have strategic partners with many local contractors.
We do, yeah. We do probably, I'd say 80 or 90, probably 90% of the breaks that we do ourselves, and when they get a little bit too big, then we have local contractors that help us out on an emergency basis.
And we have a number of emergency supplies in-house for inventory, because that's one of the challenges now we're seeing in the industry, parts.
Right, yeah, we do. We have a full warehouse where we keep repair parts, and we also have good relationships with the other departments, where if we needed something from, you know, the city of Painesville, Cleveland, wherever, they'll help us out like we help them out if they need something.
And it's kind of a, if I could use the term mutual aid, since that's something we're all familiar with, there are relationships there, although in some places you're competitors, it's a friendly competition for the good of the public. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, yeah. We always want to keep everybody in water regardless of who the supplier is.
There you go. Thank you. Anything further?
Very good.
Mr. President,
You're a
just
good team.
Indeed, they truly, no, they are.
just one follow-on.
Yes, sir.
In addition to contingency funds, what level of insurance coverage do you have for a calamity?
I can look that up for you. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's part of the county program.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate an update on that.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you.
Resolution authorizing execution of an engineering agreement with Stephen Hovansik and Associates Incorporated for the Vine Street Waterline Replacement Project 447W for the Lake County Department of Utilities.
Move to approve?
Second.
And discussion, Randy, do you want to give a little background on that as well, please?
Sure. These next 3 projects are part of our design plan for 2021 to be built in 2022. Each one of these projects ends up having probably 7 or 8 resolutions by the time the project's over, from moving money to fund the project, which we did last week, to these agreements, which will allow us to, which will authorize the consultants to do the design. And then we also have resolutions when we go to bid. We have resolutions when we go to enter into a contract. And so this is the very early stage of these 3 projects for our 2021 plan.
Very good. Any further discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of an engineering agreement with EDG Incorporated for the Division Bank Atwater Waterline Replacement Project 446W for the Lake County Department of Utilities.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of an engineering agreement with GPD Group Incorporated for the Lakeshore Boulevard Waterline Replacement Project 448W for the Lake County Department of Utilities.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution awarding a bid contract in the amount of $1,074,603 to United Earthworks for Cell C4 Expansion Phase 6 Part D Cell Preparation Project 421L.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion. Randy, this one's a kind of a high dollar one. Do you want to give us a little more information on it? I know we've been talking about this project.
Right. Yeah, this project essentially is Part D, so the 4th project out of our cell expansion out at the landfill. This one is starting to move some dirt, essentially, to build the walls for the cell. We've also had other phases of moving pipelines that are in the way of that. installing the road to get up to the top from the other side, and also some fence around the entire perimeter of the landfill. But this is a significant part of that. It's about a $3 million project overall to prepare the cell to have another about 25 to 30 years of capacity for Lake County solid waste.
And regarding background, everything needs to be done by EPA standards. Everything needs to be contained within that cell, the leachate, the liquids, the gas coming off of that, all those contingencies. If you want to give a little background on that as well, please.
Sure. Yeah, all those systems are in place, and the 25-year capacity for the landfill is not all built at one time. So that's why these are all coming in phases, and there is a gas system that is, because the landfill is continually growing. It's essentially a mountain that starts about 40 feet underground and ends up about 60 feet above ground. And all those systems that you mentioned have to be installed as that is being built. So there's constantly construction going on and expansion going on to accommodate that. There's leachate, the water that gets into the landfill and then eventually gets to the bottom, is pumped out and then treated. And then also the gas that is generated from the garbage as it decomposes then also has to be taken care of. So then those systems are continually being built as the trash is brought in.
And again, just I think it's something worth mentioning to complement the facility, its operation, the integrity. EPA has had no issues with our landfill. If you want to jump on that one, I know other landfills
Sure.
have had any number of problems. We are not one of them.
Yeah, we have a real good relationship with EPA and the local health district. The health district comes out once a month for an inspection. EPA a couple times a year. The EPA issued a permit to install for this entire system for this cell improvement that will last over the next several years. And like I said, we have a real good relationship. If something comes up, we always address it immediately. So.
And you raised my next point, the health district. That's something that's little known. Everybody knows the EPA. Most folks have no idea of all the responsibilities of Lake County General Health District, that this is one of their statutory mandated operational requirements, in addition to all of the other activities that they're currently engaged in. And you've continued to have a good working relationship with the health district. Again, Lake County General Health District is totally separate from the Board of Lake County Commissioners or Lake County government. They're a totally separate political subdivision. I want to make that abundantly clear, because boy, do people get those two mixed up. Did I get all those commercials in there?
Sure. Very well, yes.
And the last point that I want to make on this is all taking place within budget. The way the landfill's been managed, run, the cost of the facility, everything is being accommodated. There's nothing on the horizon in the immediate future that says, hey, we need to raise tipping fees, disposal fees, whatever other activities. We're looking really good there. That's been a good partnership with the group that's doing the compacting and the spreading and all that.
It has been, yeah. We have a 5-year contract with our contractor who, like you said, moves the waste around on top of the landfill. That'll be renewed, I think, in about a year and a half, and a rebid essentially. And yeah, we're working very well with them, very cooperative, and we have to work closely with them as we're building this infrastructure. They're trying to do their job also, so it works out very well.
And that's the group responsible for what we hear when people talk about the average daily cover, all the other activities where you don't have garbage just laying out. That's all part of the odor control as far as insects, other animals. You might want to try to take advantage of that. I don't know as long as we're beating this horse and getting all these details out there, you want to just flesh that last little bit out?
Right, they're responsible for, as soon as the truck leaves the scale, then they're responsible to make sure that garbage is placed properly, compacted properly, and then making sure that it's covered every night, making sure that if it's windy, they're responsible to make sure garbage doesn't fly around. If it is, they're chasing it down and keeping the area clean. So they're responsible for everything after it leaves the scale, and the working face. That's what they're responsible for. We maintain the rest of the property
from that.
And just because we're a landfill adjacent to an industrial area, we're still being respectful of the neighborhoods that are growing up around there.
Certainly.
Okay. I can't think of anything else that we could add to that discussion, but have we missed anything, or are we good to go?
Well,
Questions?
Mr. President, I just want to say in particular, thanks to Director Roethlisberger, no relation to the Pittsburgh Steeler, he swears, for giving me a tour of the Lake County landfill earlier this year. It really was educational to see how the facility was managed to make sure that there is minimized environmental impact and maximum use of the area, so that this landfill really will be able to serve Lake County residents for the foreseeable future. We've noted that Part D, the fourth phase, will probably give us 25 to 30 years more of capacity. There are other blocks of land adjacent to and part of the superstructure of the landfill that will probably allow us, if I recall correctly, more along the lines of 80 years of use. So in all likelihood, the landfill will continue to be able to serve Lake County's needs until everyone in this room is dead.
Well,
We could all become part of it someday, right?
So don't worry, 25 to 30 years is just the end of Part D. There'll be Part E, F, that will continue the useful life of the landfill. And the real advantage here is that we all pay for disposal services. And because of the fact that these companies, when disposing of Lake County refuse and garbage, are given a discounted rate, it effectively lowers your cost as a resident or a business, which is a real advantage that most counties don't have. And by having a well-run landfill that prioritizes these environmental concerns, we also minimize the impact on our metro parks, our residences. We don't have a horrible stench or a entreat into the local rivers and waterways. You probably see the picture hanging on the wall, Keep Lake County clean and green. The landfill tries to use some of its resources to emphasize the importance of recycling, so that maybe instead of 80 years we get 90 or 100 out of the landfill. We don't want to throw away more than we have to, but to the extent that we are managing garbage and refuse, we want to do it as efficiently and safely as possible. And seconding President Hamercheck, we're really grateful for the professionalism that our staff shows in managing that, because we don't have the Ohio EPA breathing down our neck and citing us. And there are many landfills in other municipalities and counties not so far from here that have had to shut down and have substantial reforms because they didn't play by the rules. So it's not a participation award that the landfill has continued to be approved of by the Ohio EPA. They have very stringent standards, and many landfills have failed to meet them, but we've always had a Department of Utilities that goes above and beyond. When we think of utilities, we think of our water and sewer. We often forget, because not every county has one, that there is a landfill, and it's something to see. So I know that with COVID, most of the county tours had to be canceled for the general public, but as we start to reopen, I hope that those of you with an interest, take a closer look at the landfill, get a sense of how we manage it, how we minimize the environmental impact. And when you see the areas that are already full and you see the green, how the care is taken to actually plant over so that we don't end up with a giant mountain of garbage circled by seagulls in the end. It becomes a green space as each phase is completed. So there is a long-term plan for the environmental health of the area, even as we're using it to help lower the cost for residents and businesses.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Young, anything?
No.
Okay, just one. Poor Randy's going to say, oh, dear God, here we go. John did remind me of something that you had mentioned regarding the metro parks. The landfill being a good neighbor, also working with our metro parks, I want to call it more of a virgin area to the north. Because of the responsible activity, the good neighbor, I'm going to call it good neighbor policy, the metro parks is in the process of putting together the single longest walking trail along Lake Erie. Did you want to talk about the relationship there? Because all of this, it may not seem like it's connected, but ladies and gentlemen, please understand, none of these things operate in a vacuum. You've got a well-run landfill. We've got a good working relationship with our metro parks, and I'm pretty sure nobody's going to want to go for a nice leisurely walk past Oh, that's a technical term of art, by the way, as I look over at legal. You good with that, or do you want to add any of that?
Sure. No, you're right. We have we own property around the landfill that is either for future expansion, like Commissioner Plechik mentioned, or just for buffer, so we don't have houses and businesses encroaching right on top of us. And but we are able to use some of that land, or allow the metro parks to use some of that land for walking trails and that sort of thing. That will have less impact as far as the landfill goes. So yeah, we have, like you said, a very good relationship with them, and we'll continue to have that as we go in the future.
Excellent, thank you. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing execution of a purchase agreement for real property located at 196 East Jackson Street in the city of Painesville, Ohio.
Move to approve?
Second.
And discussion, Jason Boyd, did you want to add a little there?
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, this is a resolution to acquire a piece of property adjacent, well, close to the existing Buildings and Grounds facility on Jackson Street. Prior to this board, as we looked at facility needs, potential public safety center down the road, we acquired 4 homes in 2016. This was a parcel that was not available at that point in time. It became available a couple weeks ago. Worked with a local realtor. Got the property below the asking price, and so we're here today to finalize the acquisition and close on the property tomorrow.
Let's see, just again, from public interest, the home is unoccupied. It's in okay shape, but it's not something that has any historical value. There's nothing that would be objectionable.
Yeah, it's a multi-family. It appears as a single-family home, but it's a duplex unit. As I said, I want to be clear that it was on the market for sale. We expressed an interest, and that's where we are today.
And even though this is if I could use the term, a hot market, we did actually get it below the asking.
A couple $1,000s below asking price, yes. Short term, we may look at, as everyone knows, there's appears to be some concerns about parking. I sometimes disagree in my urban planning background, but one of the short-term uses could be increased parking for our customers and mostly our employees over by 125 East Erie.
Very good. Commissioner Young, Commissioner Plechnik, anything you want to add?
Mr. President?
Sir.
First, I'd like to note that the local realtor is our very own Bonnie Boyd, and we're very grateful to her for her hard work in acquiring the property below asking price. That certainly helps our taxpayer-funded budget as we have people work hard to minimize cost. Although we always hesitate to turn more and more land into parking, regardless of our future needs, as Painesville continues to grow, and that is a good thing as we see our community here grow in Painesville. The need for parking downtown has only increased, and it's fair to project that need will continue to increase, and we need to make sure that we're providing convenient and accessible parking, not just for our employees who obviously need to have it, but for those who choose to visit commissioners' meetings or interacting with county government and downtown Painesville as we see all the events reopen. So I do think that while it's a humble purpose, having more accessible parking for employees and for visitors to downtown is really significant.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Carrier procured through Sourcewell on behalf of the Lake County Department of Buildings and Grounds for the replacement of the HVAC system for the Lake County Crime Laboratory in an amount not to exceed $361,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
And discussion. Jason, did you want to give a little bit of a...
Commissioner, yes.
Mr. Hackman.
Yes, sir. Resolutions 7, 8, and 9 are all for the Crime Lab. Crime Lab has the original HVAC system from when it was built. It is in need of replacement and was obtained through the governmental procurement Sourcewell.
And again, folks are going to ask, okay, so we've got number 7's at 361,000, number 8 is at 31,000, and number 9 is at 69,680. There are sections to the building. That's why we're replacing things in
Yes.
blocks. Again, a casual observer looking at that would be like, why did that get broken up?
Yes, but it all does tie into one main HVAC system.
Which is why they're all stacked.
Correct.
Okay. And there are, again, for the public interest, also being upgraded to current standards, filtration, all the necessary, I don't want to say bells and whistles because that really minimizes the value. We're talking proper filtration because the vital service that that facility provides to law enforcement in Lake County.
That's correct, and it's also high efficiency.
High efficiency, very good. So the return on just the fuel savings alone will be a true offsetting cost as opposed to the legacy systems that are there now. And I believe there's also some additions to that building, which also is one of the reasons why this is 3 different systems as things were added.
Well, they're all, again, these are all,
They all work together. I get it.
legal terminology is pieces and parts to go into one system.
Fair enough, because it's all one building. We're not going to tear one section down just because. Okay. All right. Any further background on that?
Mr. President, I
Sure.
can say having toured the crime lab earlier this year, and I want to extend my thanks again to our county prosecutor Chuck Colson for taking the time to personally show me the facilities. I have a real appreciation for the need for this expenditure, not only because we need to have heating and cooling in a building with sensitive technology, but you have to be particularly careful when you're handling dangerous materials that can be translated into the air very quickly. There are rooms that are sealed off so that if various drugs or chemicals were to be exposed to the air, they don't ultimately affect the other employees. So when we're talking about an HVAC system in a crime lab, it's not just important for the comfort and the daily work of those who serve us. It's not just important to make sure that very expensive pieces of technology aren't damaged by extreme heat or cold. It's also necessary for safety purposes. So this is a really significant investment in one of our most important criminal justice facilities in Lake County. Very few facilities like this exist in the state, and if you want to know why our prosecutor's office is able to solve crimes faster in working with our sheriff, why we're able to get to the bottom of a scientifically difficult case, it's because we don't have to send a sample off and wait months or even years for a response at a state crime lab. We can do that in-house with the highest level experts in technology, and this is just an investment in that.
Well said. And just by way of background, our crime lab provides services to all law enforcement agencies in Lake County. I believe we also would have the ability to assist out of county if the need were to arise because of certain expertise. And something that I believe is worth stating, it hasn't been talked about in a while, actually our Lake County crime lab was the first crime lab to identify some of these designer drugs that were such a significant impactor in the opioid crisis. Until a drug is identified as an illicit substance, as a prosecutor, you folks can't take action on it. Is that a...
That's correct. And the work that is done there not only helps the prosecutors prove their cases, it also helps, as I see Ms. Clapp, Lake County Public Defender in the audience here, helps prove innocence too, which is just as important.
And that's something that also, if you have anything you care to add to that, that is actually something that is very often understated, that in the discovery and the disclosure, everything's laid on the table. Our crime lab, the information gathered there is very specific and it's unbiased. It has just, if I could use the old Joe Friday reference, just the facts. Anything you wanted to add to that?
I would just add...
Oh, if you don't mind the microphone. I'm so sorry, the audience can't hear. Chair, sorry, Vanessa Clapp, she is our Chief Public Defender.
Thank you. I would just add that one thing that Mr. Hackman referenced is certainly everybody deserves to have an effective defense. And what we have found with the crime lab and the experts and the professionals that work there is that it doesn't matter that we're coming as criminal defense attorneys, that we're from, as some people think, the other side. They are very open and communicative with us. We frequently reach out and go and meet with them, and they review with us the evidence and the procedures they went through to get there, because that's part of proving the state case, and part of our job is to challenge that if necessary. So they're just very open. It doesn't matter which side, so to speak, you're from. So they've been very helpful to us.
And while you're here, Commissioner Plesher did mention what would lead into trace evidence, things that are so sensitive you would need. Again, this is an essential maintenance component for this facility, but trace evidence, that's also something our crime lab is noted
Right.
for, which has also been valued to, I believe, the public defender as well as the prosecutor.
It certainly is. A lot of the stuff is so technical and scientific. We're lawyers, we're not scientists, so we don't understand a lot of it always. But we have to if we're going to effectively represent our clients. So we will often bring our own experts in with us to go meet with the folks at the crime lab and to help us in our understanding of what they're talking about, particularly when they're going to be testifying in court. We need to be able to effectively cross-examine them and sometimes go to our clients and say, listen, this is pretty good evidence. We're not going to really be able to get around this DNA. Let's talk about resolving this case to your advantage in a different way. So they've been
And you
very
raise a
helpful.
good point. Just a simple touch is more than just leaving a fingerprint. There is trace DNA left behind, and
There is.
that has exonerated many people, and it's also convinced people to say, okay, stop. Yeah,
Right.
accept the consequences of your actions. So it is balanced. Kind of
Mm-hmm. It
look
is.
over to Mr. Leimer there, like,
Thank
we
you.
got a good salute. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Anything further to add on that discussion?
So, Mr. President, two things. For people who aren't familiar with the crime lab, we talked about trace evidence where you're literally looking at, say, some paint that was left on a car-to-car accident, say a hit and run. We have DNA evidence, and frankly, we're talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of machinery that allows you to identify whether this is in a 1 in 10 billion chance the same person. So we have the finest machines in the business for DNA evidence, but we also have fingerprint evidence. So we literally still do the old-fashioned fingerprinting and review, and we run that across state and federal databases, as well as ballistic evidence. If you go down the basement, we have our own firing range in the crime lab, so they can test and see whether or not this gun came from Ohio Ordnance or Smith & Wesson, and can even trace it back to the particular gun in most cases. For those of you who are history buffs, they actually maintain from the famous cases in Lake County most of the guns that were confiscated. There is the Lundgren sniper rifle, which I think is the largest gun down there. I asked for the most expensive, most valuable, and they handed me a small Belgian revolver that was apparently used in a robbery in Madison. If they'd simply sold the revolver, they probably would have gotten more money than the robbery, because it's apparently quite rare. But from ballistic evidence to fingerprints to DNA to trace evidence, the crime lab really is a comprehensive facility. The second thing that I wanted to say is related, but on a different topic. I really think it's important, as someone who in my other life, my day job, is a law professor, that we continue to invest in our justice system at every level, whether it's the prosecutors, the public defenders, the crime lab. And as I've toured different county buildings, I really do feel strongly that we need to look more closely at our probate court and their HVAC system as well. So I'm hopeful that we can have a conversation going forward. I know they're having issues where some days it's hot as an oven, other days it's cold as a freezer. It's one of our older buildings. It's a beautiful historic building. It's the old post office, for those of you at home who aren't familiar with downtown Painesville. So it's really a wonderful place for a courtroom and for a court. But we do want to make sure that we're treating those employees well. One way or the other, every one of us goes to probate court, whether it's for marriage, name change, or death. We can't avoid it. Every one of us will go there at least one time. And so I'm hopeful that the commissioners can review the HVAC system and their other needs in the near future.
For those that go there for death, the HVAC system could avoid a lot of the odor, that sort of thing.
Goodness gracious. But that actually, again, just to emphasize the importance of this, and wouldn't want the Monday morning quarterbacks to come in and say, hey, that $361,000 sounds like a great deal of money. Again, state term schedule. but given the sophistication of some of the equipment, they have at least 2 that I'm aware of, atomic absorption spectrometers. That's a mouthful, I have to slow way down to say that. Equipment that needs to be protected, temperature, humidity, dust, even pollen in the air can affect the equipment. Very, very delicate, very sensitive, but also having the provisions where we have a safe work environment, because these folks are part of our public safety forces. They are in support of law enforcement. They are actually on crime scenes. And trace evidence, transfer evidence, incredibly delicate, sensitive, and easily tainted or destroyed if mishandled. So again, HVAC systems are an integral part to that building and its overall systems. Mr. Hackman, is there anything else you want to add? I'm hoping that we've got support here, but I also want to make sure that the record reflects that this has been well thought out and this is not just some, gee, we're giving you something so you don't have to sweat.
Yes, it was well thought out. Again, we still have the original HVAC system in there. I don't know the exact age. I think it's approximately 30 years. As far as covering the details, I think they've been covered.
And again, end of service life, there is costs of maintaining old systems, and those costs can become burdensome, to say the very least, because they generally impact the general fund, but I'll just leave that one be. That was a plug from Mr. Matus, our budget director there. Okay, if there's no further discussion on this item, Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Carrier procured through Sourcewell on behalf of the Lake County Department of Buildings and Grounds for the replacement of the HVAC system for the Lake County Crime Laboratory in an amount not to exceed $31,000.
Move to approve?
Second.
And under discussion, I think it's worth mentioning that the previously stated discussion from item 7 is directly applicable to item 8, just to be abundantly clear.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of a contract with Carrier procured through Sourcewell on behalf of the Lake County Department of Buildings and Grounds for the replacement of the HVAC system for the Lake County Crime Laboratory in an amount not to exceed $69,680.
Move to approve.
Second.
And under discussion, just for bookkeeping purposes, item 9, for the same reasons as item 8, refers directly back to the discussion that was associated with item 7.
Correct.
Okay, can't keep them straight without a scorecard, so we're good. Is there any further discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, and again, just a reminder, item 10 has been withdrawn.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $771,084.52.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. You got some?
Mr. President, I just wanted to say, as the newest commissioner, I continue to have greater and greater appreciation for our budget director, Mike Matus. I really appreciate the work that he's done. When we pass these approval journals and purchase orders, this represents an enormous amount of work from our budget office as well as our clerk and assistant clerk. So just a word of thanks. We do a quick vote, but there's an enormous amount of review that goes into it before it comes to the commissioner's table.
No, there is indeed. I can remember a time when Commissioner Young was questioning I think it was a $3.52 oil filter, if I remember correctly. Does that sound about right?
I don't recall that, but I trust you.
That was very early. Well, you've developed good trust, though. But that is, thank you, Commissioner Plechnik. That is worth saying that the staff does do an exhaustive effort to make sure that not only the information presented is true and accurate, there's an abundance of backup documentation that if we do have a question, even if it is just about an oil filter, that we've got those answers. So with that, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $432,809.09.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring an appropriation within a non-general fund account.
Move to approve?
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution establishing a fund to be known as Technology Grant Fund.
Move to approve?
Second.
And under discussion, Jason, did you want to give us a little bit of background on that one?
Yeah, Commissioners, this is a request of Director Amatus in Finance. This is a kind of a housekeeping item from I believe, and I know Chief of Staff is here, for the clerk, along with Judge Lucci, in getting a state grant. So this is a kind of a receipt item to go ahead and process that successful grant application.
So it's kind of the bookkeeping side of things. We clearly need that. And okay, fair enough. Don't need to add to it because I know Faith Andrews is not available today. She's a bit under the weather, shall we say? Which is, yeah. Okay. If there's no further discussion.
Oh, but there is.
Oh boy. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, I just want to say that while our Clerk of Courts, Faith Andrews, can't join us, we'd be remiss if we didn't say that her work along with Judge Lucci really is a significant benefit to the county. As always, they're working to make sure that we're using the most cutting-edge technology, and in line with our county's philosophy, they work very hard to find external funding, which lowers the burden on taxpayers. I know that's a theme we've heard a lot from our friends in the public, from the reporters and the media. There is a heavy burden from property and other taxes. So when we have our Clerk of Courts, when Judge Lucci work together to get external funding to not only have the best technology, but pay for it outside of our local taxpayers' burden, it's really commendable. So we're grateful to Faith Andrews, we're grateful to Judge Lucci, and we also acknowledge the hard work of her staff, including her Chief of Staff, Colin Connors, who joined us today.
That well said, and yes, I have to say that Judge Lucci, along with the other judges, they are good stewards of the public funds, and I have to say, although Faith Andrews is our new Clerk of Courts, she is proving to be a tremendous partner and an asset, and working extremely well with our courts, and this is emblematic of the fruits of that good partnership. I think that's reasonable. Commissioner Young, did you want to add anything? Or?
Well, one thing that really impressed me when I became a commissioner was just those folks develop relationships in the private sector. And in many cases, it's not really part of the demands on them to the revised code to reach out the way that they do to these companies that engage them and pay us for services. And we have all this revenue there that they're not really being evaluated based on. And yet they continue to work so hard to develop all these additional revenues for the county that can then be used on a multitude of services for economic development and additional services, etc. So it's really been impressive what they've been able to accomplish, the Clerk of Courts with Faith, and before that with Maureen. But it's very impressive.
The fund that Commissioner Young is referring to is the Certificate of Title, and as Commissioner Young accurately portrayed, Maureen Kelly, the former clerk, started a good working relationship primarily with Carvana, where a percentage, there's the term poundage, which always sounds a little silly, but it's just a percentage of the transaction, and those dollars accumulate, and when they reach a certain point, the clerk has the authority to declare a surplus, and those dollars can be used through the general fund for the good of the community. We've had several examples of that. Faith Andrews has continued that practice and expanded it, I might add. In fact, we're going to have a little sneak preview here coming up, and I think under possibly new or old business. Little foreshadowing there, folks. But to Commissioner Young's point, this is not statutorily required. You hear so often, this is my job description, that's all I'm required to do. There are numerous examples of elected officials and the staff exceeding those statutory requirements and delivering value back to the people not so long ago, again, as long as we're on the subject of clerk of courts, Commissioner Young had worked with Maureen Kelly and our Visitors Bureau, and you had secured, I'll let you have the floor on this one. That was your baby.
Well, I didn't secure anything, Commissioner. I simply.
You made the ask.
I made the request, and they were kind enough to help us out.
And that was $75,000 to help for advertising for our wineries. We had an event out at, was it the Farm Park, if I remember correctly?
That's right.
And it was a very nice, elegant event. They were showing many of the wares of Lake County. And again, grants, certificate of title, all of these are examples of activities that are outside the scope of statutory requirements. And going out and exceeding expectations on a regular basis for the good of all. Anything you want to add to that one?
No, you've said it all. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you. Commissioner Plechik, any more?
Well, I would just add, I'm looking forward to sharing more about how the Clerk of Courts continues to contribute to economic development and safety. But just to the general point that we're actually bringing money into the county, this is a revenue positive department, that the Clerk of Courts is actually contributing to the bottom line of the county and in very significant ways. I know it was a small expenditure, but I was particularly touched by how our Clerk of Courts, Faith Andrews, contributed to scholarships at Auburn Career Center for our new dispatch program, which feeds directly into supporting our sheriff's office, our dispatch center, and safety in the county. And that was a really foresighted investment that doesn't just create jobs and help improve education, but also improve safety and supports our police and law enforcement. So I think you're seeing how our Justice Center is really pulling together between our prosecutors, public defenders, clerks, and judges to try to not only provide the highest level of service, but really to do so at as low a burden and cost to the average Lake County taxpayer as possible.
You nailed it, because again, although we're talking about a technology grant, opportunities between Judge Lucci, Clerk of Courts, Faith Andrews, that partnership, this is emblematic of many other activities that exceed, as Commissioner Young pointed out, what their statutory requirement is. For example, Captain Warner of Lake County Central Communications, he had worked, I'm going to say on his own time, working on the telecommunicator program with Auburn Career Center. Auburn Career Center is a tremendous asset. Faith Andrews has continued to see the value in that and continuing to grow what I'm going to call the farm team, but where you can actually, I'm going to say it, cherry pick the best of the best for our own in-house dispatching, because dispatching is incredibly expensive, but the term telecommunicator is more representative because it does show the next generation of dispatcher where they're engaging in every manner of IT, wireless, you name it, it's there. It's not just picking up a phone and saying 911, what's your emergency? So this grant, although it's a placeholder on the books so we have some place to receipt those funds, it is emblematic of a greater picture and activities that are taking place. I'll look to our legal. Is there anything you wanted to add to this? Because that there's so many things that are so intertwined here.
Nothing to add.
Very good, sir. All right, if there's no further discussion on this, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And special resolutions, resolution proclaiming World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Lake County, Ohio.
Move to approve.
Second.
And discussion.
Mr. President, if I may say, I feel particularly strongly about drawing more attention to the ever-growing, the very serious issue of elder abuse in our community. We've heard it many times from our senior centers and from our healthcare facilities. Lake County does have an aging population, so we have more seniors that need to have care, but we also have more, unfortunately, people who continue to try to take advantage of those of us that are most vulnerable time. If we're lucky enough to live that long, we'll all be in a position someday where we rely on others for different things, whether it be your lawyer, your caretaker, public official, government servant, and you build a special relationship of trust and confidence. And the vast majority of people in that position serve their community, serve our seniors, and help to take care of us. But there are some people who do take advantage of that special relationship. And what makes elder abuse such a heinous crime is that the victims don't even realize they're victims. They don't even understand that the person who's abusing them is a bad person. They think that they're their savior, they're helping them. They take advantage of people when they're at their lowest, trust them the most, and might be their only outlet to the world. And it's so incumbent on us as public servants, whether we're a prosecutor, a commissioner, whether we're a judge, a clerk of courts, that we're aware of this issue and we do everything possible, not only to stop it, but to condemn it, to make sure that someone who might be thinking about how they can use their position of influence knows that it is wrong to have someone that you're caring for leave their entire estate to you, their house to you, that it is wrong to take property or quote-unquote gifts from someone that you have an official caretaker relationship for. Now, something nominal like a Christmas card, that's one thing. But it is never right to take someone's home, to take the inheritance from their children and grandchildren. And in particular, we need to care about our isolated seniors, those who don't have children and grandchildren, who will notice if the home isn't left to them. As a law professor who teaches estates and trusts, I have to talk about this issue with my students each and every year, usually every semester. And as I see this issue grow in public notice, I'm not convinced that elder abuse is growing. I think that our awareness is growing. So while I'm saddened to see it in the papers, I think that we are making progress. We are making progress in warning our seniors about the danger of someone who says, hey, why don't you leave me something in your will? Or your children don't care about you. Why don't you give it to me instead? That's one way that we can push back, by condemning, by shaming this behavior, by making clear that it's wrong. Not every elder abuser will be caught, and not every elder abuser who's caught will go to jail. But if we can, as a society, create a real stigma against this practice, we can stop it before it starts. So I'm really proud of the Board of Commissioners for taking this stand. A lot of these resolutions are feel-good. There's nothing feel-good about this. This is hard to accept, that in our community, that government servants, that lawyers, that our colleagues could do such a thing. But read the newspaper. We know it happens. It happens here in Lake County, here in Northeast Ohio, and as a community, as a family, we need to come together and protect our seniors. So thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne, is there something you'd care to add to this?
Yes, thank you. Job and Family Services is mandated to investigate referrals involving individuals age 60 or over who may be victims of alleged abuse, neglect, or exploitation. So we are here today to bring this very difficult issue to the attention of the public. I've also asked one of our assistant administrators in the Child and Adult Protective Services Division, Allie Tomaselli, to be here today to talk a little bit more about this very important issue.
Ma'am?
Good morning. Well, it's very hard to follow up on that. That was amazing. So thank you for saying that. You're right. It is so prevalent in our community. Annually in Ohio, they were estimating that there's over 15,000 cases of abuse, neglect, or exploitation of seniors 60 and older. In Lake County alone, we investigate between 30 and 40 cases each month, brand new cases each month of this. And I don't think it's more prevalent, like you said. I do think it's just the awareness that's getting out there and the education that we're able to provide people to look for these signs and these red flags of abuse and neglect. But yes, June 15th is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So we call that WEAD just because it's really long. And but it was launched in 2006 just as a platform to draw attention to this issue of elder abuse and maltreatment and to just provide a platform to educate our communities. We recognize this day in Lake County each year. So this year we are hosting a virtual training on exploitation and undue influence. We also partner with our community agencies. So this year we're partnering with ASA And we will display the purple and white silhouettes at the Life Brand Cowboy Church in Paintsville. So these silhouettes, if you've seen them, they really do symbolize our aging population. There's, let's see, I think there's 9 white ones and there's 1 purple one, because statistics show that 1 in 10 elder Americans are subject to abuse and neglect. So that 1 purple silhouette is really that that symbol of that elder that is being maltreated. So the silhouettes, they do serve as a reminder that elder abuse does exist and that it takes a community to recognize and report signs of maltreatment in order to keep our seniors safe. So, thank you.
So while we have you, though,
Yes.
you talked about red flags.
Yes.
Also referred to as indicators. I will say, are there, for the benefit of all, are there mandated reporters, people who see something that they're required
Yes.
to
So
report?
there are many reporters in Ohio to report elder maltreatment, and they range from attorneys, police officers, mandated reporters, pharmacists. The financial field kind of came on board within the last couple of years because of the financial exploitation. So accountants, even people, banking institutions, credit institutions, anyone handling finances. And those are important because we see so many of those exploitation cases where, the bank tellers or the credit union employees are noticing large sums of money missing from accounts, or money being sent overseas, or purchase of gift cards, in high dollar amounts. So luckily they came on board as mandated reporters within the past couple of years to assist with that.
And some of those exploitations, financial, I know our sheriff has posted some warning indicators where you get that famous call from your grandchild's in jail, or there's been a terrible
There's
accident.
unfortunately quite a few scams out there, including the grandparent scam, or we have a lot of sweetheart scams, of people reaching out to vulnerable, lonely seniors with the hopes of marrying them if they could just get over to the United States, and they'll take care of them for the rest of their lives. So we have a lot of those scams too, which are unfortunate.
On a humorous but serious note, after my father's passing, I cautioned my mother. I said, "Mom, don't be surprised if somebody tries to cozy up to you." And she scoffed at that, and I said, "It's going to happen in the produce section at the grocery store." Sure enough. Needless to say, though, Mother, after 50 years, said she took great offense to that. That's her Steve. That was my father, Steve. She responded very assertively. She's got some spunk. She's an old World War II girl. She's 94 now, God bless her. But that was, till death do us part in her universe means they both pass away.
Yeah.
So she's still counting the years. But that type of sweetheart deal, there's always somebody looking to take advantage and exploit.
Yeah, and we see it happen frequently, and not only that, but the senior themselves, they're embarrassed, so they don't want to even acknowledge that something happened. They don't want to look to press charges, but oftentimes those particular seniors are targeted again, in a year later, 6 months later. So, we do deal with that they're embarrassed, they're, shameful of what happened, particularly if they do have family members or, adult children, that they don't want their children to know that happened.
And on that note, one of the things which we see very commonly, particularly at this time of year, people with home improvement scams, cleaning the gutters, doing the roof, doing things in places where that senior can't get to inspect the type of work.
Yeah.
Those are, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, they'll collect, the contractors will collect, a deposit for work to be performed and then never return to perform that work. And so that senior is out several $1,000s for work that hasn't been done.
And then the psychological component, the shaming, where a trusted friend or a family member takes advantage of them, but then shames them not into taking action.
Well, we see a lot of that too, and we I guess, I don't want to say affectionately refer to that as enabling, but a lot of times it's not this stranger that's a perpetrator, but it's a grandchild or it's an adult child that makes them, rather threatens them or intimidates them into giving them money or assets, or if they won't take care of this senior as they age, if they don't kind of provide this what this perpetrator is looking for.
And as we've observed in the opioid crisis in particular, people stealing medications,
Yes.
but then stealing properties that may go unnoticed for some time in order to basically pay for their addiction.
Yeah, so stealing property, or, that jar of change that senior has collected over the years, or, money that they have put away for retirement or for their care in the future. We see that those funds being depleted.
Indeed. Commissioner Young? Commissioner
I
Fletcher?
just have one quick question. What type, can you give us an example or two, or you just did, but of very damaging type of elderly abuse that you see around here in Lake County? More so maybe perhaps than in other counties, or something that's happening here that people could be on the lookout for. You've already named a few things. So.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to exploitation, we see neglect cases where it is a caretaker responsible for care of that senior. So maybe they're locking them in the house, or locking them in a room, or even confining them to a specific bed or a chair so that they're not wandering, or they're not, getting up, that they would require additional supervision. And a lot of times it's a family member that's doing that. Whether it be that they don't want to reach out for services or for help or support, or, unfortunately, sometimes those family members are interested in those inheritance funds, so they don't want to spend that money on care for that senior. So we see neglect cases like that. We see abuse cases where, again, it's a family member maybe becoming too rough because they're overwhelmed, or they're frustrated with the senior's care, that they're leaving injuries, or sometimes even in care facilities. We don't investigate nursing homes or assisted living facilities, but we do look into concerns with group homes. So a lot of times it could be a caretaker that's just frustrated, or just not careful with a senior, that they're being injured and ending up in the hospital. And
Okay. Thank you.
sure.
Mr. President?
Sir.
Two things. Red flags that I'd be particularly concerned with on the financial end is anytime a caretaker, a senior worker mentions helping you to balance your checkbook, helping you to write your will. The reality of it is hiring an attorney, hiring a financial advisor costs money. Nobody does it for free. If someone is offering to help you, more often than not, there is an underlying motivation there. So I'd say that's a big red flag when someone offers free help. I think love bombing as well. You see folks offer cookies or muffins and regular visits. They try to fill the void when someone is lonely. It's not necessarily a romantic attempt. Sometimes it's just being there. So it can be difficult sometimes to distinguish between a caring neighbor and a potential predator. But when the person offers free help with respect to finances, or wants to have unmitigated access to the home, those are, in my view, really big warning signs. You also mentioned undue influence. Sometimes, sadly, we don't get to address elder abuse until the senior has passed away, because you don't realize that the estate plan, either the trust or the will, has been modified. And so you wake up one day and there's a stranger in your mother's house, and you don't understand how the deed has transferred. You don't understand why you weren't notified about it, and you realize that these documents were all changed, powers of attorney without your notice. That's when undue influence comes in. And while the burden of proof is initially on the will or the trust contestant to say that undue influence has occurred, that burden shifts if you can show a confidential relationship, any relationship of special trust or confidence. It's harder to do with a relative, although it's not impossible. But if you see something like lawyer-client, if you see something like caretaker-patient, those are usually found to be confidential relationships by the courts, and it's relatively easy to shift that burden and have a presumption of undue influence in those cases. So it's important to know that there is a remedy, and that you don't have to just sit back and let the abuser walk away with your parent's estate. It may be too late, sadly, to help your parent, but you can at least do justice after the fact. And I just think it's important to note that if they do it once, they'll probably do it again and again and again. So it's not just about the money drawing attention to it and stopping them. You certainly should stop the abuser from being rewarded, but it won't just be your mother, father, grandparent. In all likelihood, they'll move on to the next victim. They are predators, and so it's really important. If you see something, say something, stand up for your family, not because of the estate, but because the next family needs to be protected.
Yeah, you're right. We do see the same thing. If they get shut down by one senior, for instance, like your mom, they're on to the next senior, and they'll keep going, and even, like I said, repeatedly go back to that same senior. If they're successful in getting funds or what they're asking for, they'll go back. They'll develop that relationship and keep going back to that person until they have nothing, until they have nothing.
So a little bit of background, though. In 2020, there were 15,000 reports in the state of Ohio. Lake County is not immune to that. There were 375 of these cases investigated here in Lake County.
Yes.
That's an indicator.
Yeah.
And that's there's an old saying in law enforcement: see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
That applies directly here.
Yeah, and I think we do a really good job at our agency at just getting the word out about wherever we can. We'll meet with police officers, we'll meet with bank tellers, we'll meet with whomever we need to just to provide that education about what's going on and what they can report to us. There's a stigma associated with any type of abuse, and even if we have a booth at the fair, if we have a booth at a senior day, the seniors themselves see us and they kind of shy away from us. So there's that stigma. So we try to reduce that. We try to, be friendly faces and, make it not so difficult to talk about.
And how is that training coming along? Because that actually is of interest. So if a police department, if a senior center, if a professional organization wanted to do some training, how would they reach out?
They reach right out to us, and usually it's myself and our APS supervisor that go out, and we talk about mandated reporting. We talk about symptoms and signs and red flags of abuse and neglect, and what they can do. We also talk about what we can't do. There's certain things that we can't do based on the law, and adults are allowed to make bad decisions. I think that's important to talk about, because they're allowed to make bad decisions. It's when they don't understand the consequences of those decisions, or when their decisions are impacting their safety and the safety of those around them, then that's a concern too. So we like to talk about our limitations as well.
And I know with COVID, obviously your activities were constrained.
Yeah.
Now that we're starting to come out of that, is this something that you actively go out to talk to organizations about, or do you always wait for the call?
Yeah, no, we routinely send letters.
Okay.
We'll send letters to the police chiefs, to the fire chiefs, EMS. Our mandated reporters will send letters out like, hey, we'll come out. We bother people to let us come out and talk to you,
And what kind of success rate do you have as far as getting out there? At least historically. I know 2020, we really can't look at that data.
I think historically we are pretty successful. We've sent letters to, I want to say, every single pharmacy, every single bank, credit union, because the mandated reporter law changed, I want to say in 2019, to include a couple of those professions. So we were ahead of the game and sent our information out prior to that, offering we're happy to come out and talk to you, or if you have any questions, call us directly. If you're not sure about something, we're here for you, kind of a thing. So we have really good success in that, I think.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anything further? And thank you, ma'am. And then to Suzanne, this was one of the things during our interview process, our new director. This was a subject that you had made quite an impression on us about, and that was one of the deciding factors. I don't know if you wanted to expand upon any of this.
Thank you. I would just reiterate what Allie said, that this is a topic that we take very seriously at Job and Family Services. Ensuring the safety of our elderly citizens in this community is very important. If anyone has concerns that they themselves may be being abused, neglected, or exploited, or they know someone who is being abused, neglected, or exploited, should call the Lake County Department of Job and Family Services at our hotline number, 350-4000. Press number 1. It's staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On this topic, we have a dedicated unit of social workers who are trained in working with elderly individuals and trained on spotting some of those red flags so that we could assist to the best of our ability in ensuring the safety of this very vulnerable population.
And if we could just talk about that hotline phone number. Many times somebody knows someone or they have a caseworker that they're working with. They'll send an email, they'll leave a voicemail. That's not something that's going to necessarily be responded to instantly. That 24-hour hotline, that's the number to call.
Yes, an actual person picks up that phone line, so I would recommend calling the hotline directly.
Because, again, we can't expect people to be checking their emails on the weekends, over holidays, in the middle of the night.
Correct.
That's where sometimes things break down because somebody thinks they know somebody or they know a caseworker or they have a caseworker. Still call that number. That's very important. And that's also available through, if somebody were to call 211, they'd be able to get that number.
Correct.
If somebody were to go online to your website, they'd be able to get that number.
Correct.
Okay, so they don't need to be memorizing it right this second, but in the interest of getting that out there, there are means of getting that contact number.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am. Anything further?
Mr. President,
Sir.
just to repeat, that number would be 440-350-4000. And you say that's 24-hour?
24 hours, 7 days a week, and they would press option number 1.
Very good. Whew, very challenging subject, but one that needs to be addressed and considered. So thank you for all your diligence and your hard work. All right, and with that, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes. And if we could we get a photo handing you over your, because I'm sure this is going to wind up on somebody's wall, right? Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah.
Take one more. Okay, I'd like one more. Because somebody closes their eyes. You're good.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm lost without my reading glasses, so for that I apologize. Thank you. Okay, do you need to just take a quick moment before we go into utilities and reports?
Yeah, I need to run the.
Yeah, we're just going to take a brief.
Finish the commissioners meeting.
Sure. Okay, we're good. All right, moving on to departmental reports. Do we utilities?
Nothing further today, Commissioner, thank you.
Very good, thank you. And job and family services.
Same, nothing further
Very
today.
good, thank you. County Administrator Jason Boyd.
I've got like 25 minutes worth of stuff here. So. No, just
You
briefly.
trimmed it down from this morning, I see, huh?
Just briefly continuing. Well, first thing, a bit of well, it's really good news. I think Commissioner Hammercheck was on our weekly mayors and managers call this past Tuesday at 9 a.m., which have been going on for the better part of 14 months, probably 15 months. Every Tuesday, 9 a.m. with most mayors, managers, commissioners, Metro Parks, fire officials, you name it. Cautiously optimistic, Commissioner Hammercheck, I'm sure will chime in, but we called off the dogs this week for that standing meeting. So it's you know, that was a win in my book. But as Commissioner Hammercheck interjected on the call, is that we stand willing, able, and ready if we do need to re-engage should anything else happen down the road here with COVID-19 or any other issue that's countywide in nature. So I want to give my sincere thanks. I know we've done it a lot of attaboys the past few months as we hopefully exit this once in a lifetime issue. But to the mayors and managers, I believe is President Mayor Morley of Willoughby, or excuse me, of Eastlake.
Buff Yellow's going to be.
Yeah, of Eastlake, the county commissioners for all your time and energy on those calls, allowing me to participate, Joe Busher and his team, and without any disrespect to the health district and their team. So another small step as we continue to move forward in Lake County. And just on that topic, just let our citizens know that at the health district on Heisley Road today, and then June 14th, 15th, and 16th, they'll have open vaccine clinics where you can go in and get your shot. Also today at Fairport Harbor Library from 10 a.m. to 3. We're at the fewest cases we've seen in well over a year. And as the governor had reported, I believe Tuesday, we've hit that that incident rate of 50 per 100,000. So all things look really good. So that concludes my report.
And just to expand a little bit, in the beginning, we had some challenges with communications. We worked very closely with Ron Graham, Joe Busher. Very quickly, Mayor Morley came on board and took up the torch of I will communicate. I'm kind of paraphrasing. I will work with the mayors, managers, township trustees, keeping the elected officials. So he took up that. Judy Moran was amazing at keeping the communications flowing out to the electeds. It helped us to be able to focus on, I was like say, plowing the road so that the experts could do their jobs. It was a true team effort, and I have to say that was probably one of the reasons why Lake County continues to be at the top of the response rates. A couple times since we got our testing up and running as fast as we did, we actually got dinged for that. It's like, well, yeah, the more testing you do, the more you're going to find, but that kind of counted against us very early on when we went to purple and we were all scratching our heads based on what metric, but
Yeah.
that's government. But one thing just to reassure everyone, although we are standing down on our weekly meetings, the mechanism and all of the infrastructure that was put in place for that continues. Our automatic alerting system that EMA manages is fully operational and tested out. Did you want to comment on that a bit?
I think I would encourage residents to still, if they have not, you can register on our Reverse 911 Avesta system for not only COVID-related news, but there's a whole checkbox of if you want to be notified of tornadoes or floods, that's a project that the commissioners invested in, I think, right before COVID. We had the foresight to do that, so thank you for that. And to note, Commissioner, we will continue a COVID discussion point at our monthly mayors and managers meeting. So instead of weekly on the call, I believe Mayor Morley, Commissioner Hammercheck, and Health Commissioner Graham indicated that that will be a standing line item on the mayors and managers monthly in-person meetings where the Health Commissioner and EMA Director will be invited as guests as well.
And if people still have questions, the Health District is maintaining their website. They're also available for call-ins. On the governmental side, we continue to be there to support local government and continue to interface with state and federal agencies as needed. And we're still doing the accounting side of things. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we're still working through the reimbursement process with FEMA. I just received a call at 9:55 today. The guardrails continue to move with that. So as you guys know, the county EMA is taking the lead on working with eligible expenses from local communities. That's the guardrail that moved this morning on what's eligible, what's not. So we're working through that. Obviously, we spoke about using some of our ARP funds to assist on some of those first responder county costs. So we'll continue to work through that. But yeah, we are taking the lead on that.
And we still continue to be, I believe, second in the state.
Yeah, we're right in between battling Delaware County, my hometown, for 1 and 2 each week. So.
And that again, that's a testament to the quality of the caregivers here in the county. And as we mentioned earlier, the health district has a number of responsibilities that they statutorily are responsible for. We are in the process of due consideration for financial support. Did you want to comment on any of that? Or?
No, obviously, I don't say anything, but the vast majority of practices related to the COVID pandemic, pre, post, current, would be eligible for the ARP funds. Obviously, the commissioners, we've kind of been discussing globally what eligible projects may or may not be. Final guidance comes out next month, but I'm fairly comfortable that those sorts of costs, vaccine-related pod costs, nursing costs, would be an eligible expense under the current ARP guidance. So, yeah.
Very good. Commissioner Young, Commissioner Plechnik, anything else for the administrator?
I just want to say that, real quickly, that your work with the mayors and managers was something that should be recognized. I mean, I think you were the catalyst for that.
Thank you, sir.
And you kept that sucker running for the last year and a half, whatever, the last year or so.
I have to say Mayor Morley and Judy Moran have been tremendous partners on doing that, though.
Okay.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say
All
that.
right, well, it was instrumental in keeping people informed.
Oh, yes.
I think the fact Lake County's #2 on the list of successes, at least according to several metrics.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Very kind of you. Thank
great
you, sir.
work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Plechnik.
Mr. President, I just want to echo my colleagues in saying that Mayor Dennis Morley and mayors and managers have really been incredible partners. We're so grateful to Mayor Morley, and Commissioner Young's right. You were the link between the county and the municipalities at a critical time, because no one government agency had the ability to really respond to the mandates coming down from DC and Columbus. It took all of us pulling together, and you and Mayor Morley were really at the nexus of that.
Thank you, sir. Jason, anything further?
Yeah, just, I hope, the recorder is still here, just to, the news she's been waiting to hear.
Drum roll, please.
We are going to be opening the rear sliding double doors outside of the county auditor's office tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. The commissioners, appropriately so, have taken a measured approach to the reopening. Obviously we started months ago with an appointment, by appointments only, then we let folks in via the main front door. But great conversations, and thank you to the county recorder, county auditor, county treasurer, Veterans Association, the need to have the double doors open behind the auditor's office will go into effect tomorrow at 8 a.m. I spoke to Captain Walters, who's in charge of court services, and he's comfortable with, we're going to have cameras installed. They're actually probably going to be done by tomorrow. Those will be fed down to our main post here in the administration center. So that will help our customers who visit those offices, recorder, auditor, treasurer, veteran services, and so on. So thank you to the commissioners for taking that under consideration, and we'll just keep on opening up Lake County.
And just a little brief clarity to that, in addition to our, again, measured approach to reopening. Again, safety, security, those have always been in the forefront. These enhancements, without getting specific, they are, in our opinion, necessary. They're always part of the larger plan as this new building came online. We were going to be enhancing the existing buildings.
Correct. Yep. So the amount of cameras, access control that we have now versus 3 years ago is light years ahead of where we ever were. So, yeah. So we're looking forward to folks being able to come in 2 ingress and egress points at the county's main campus. The other exterior doors will be locked. Employees with their access control can access those facilities, but the 2 main public points of access are the new building off Park Place and the double sliding doors in the rear of the building adjacent to the county auditor's office. And there is an elevator right adjacent to that, so folks can get either to the basement or to the Veteran Services Commission on the 2nd floor.
Very good, and I think it's
Thank you.
fair to also say that Sheriff Liam Bruno and his team have been a great partner in this. And, nice.
So yes, absolutely, 100%.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, Madam Clerk.
Yes, I did wanted to mention that we have got a couple of open positions on the Mentor on the Lake Tax Incentive Review Council. If anyone is interested, they can reach out to me, Jennifer Bell, at jennifer.bell@lakecounty.ohio.gov, and they do not need to be residents of Mentor on the Lake to be on the Tax Incentive Review Council. And I also wanted to mention there's also a couple of board appointments expiring on the Adams Board at the end of June. And if anyone's interested, they can also submit their resumes and letters of interest to me. Thank you.
Very good. I always found that odd that you could be on the tax review council for a community and not even live in that community.
Ohio Revised Code.
I think that's the legislature doing it.
Freedom.
Freedom,
Open it
yeah.
up. Don't discriminate.
Don't discriminate. Oh, golly. All right.
Mr. President?
Oh, sure.
Just by way of clarification to our clerk, Madam Bell, when you say a couple of openings, could you clarify how many are available on the Adams Board coming up?
There are 2.
2. Okay, couple, literally. And I will say the commissioners really do value when people who are interested apply. I know we've had some issues in the past where folks were hopeful that the commission would intuit they were interested. It really is important that we have a full resume submission so that we can review everyone and make a reasoned decision.
Very good. All right, so moving on to legal. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Okay, this brings us to our old business portion of our meeting. Do we have any old business? No? New business. Do we have any new business?
Mr. President?
Sir.
Just following off my previous point, I really think it's critical that we maintain our county resources, and I think it's very important that we have a review of our probate court building focused on the HVAC, and I'd like to make sure that we have on our agenda in the near future a real thorough review of the needs of that building. It's a historic building. It's really part of the skyline in downtown Paynesville in the square, so it's an important responsibility not only for our services but really for the appearance of the city that we make sure that that building is state of the art. And 2, kind of in my general tour of county buildings, another minor observation I saw was in our EMA, our emergency management facility. There's a kitchen, and that kitchen is important for 2 reasons. If there's a nuclear meltdown at Perry, cross your fingers, hopefully that doesn't happen. That is our emergency center, and it would be absolutely critical for our leadership, law enforcement, and disaster relief team to have a strong facility there, but in all likelihood that will never happen. That's what our professionals are working toward. In all likelihood we'll never have a critical emergency like that, but every single day, we talked about our telecommunicators, our dispatch, we have 24/7 a core of employees who are dealing with emergencies at the EMA, and they utilize that kitchen for their day-to-day use. I'm aware that the refrigerator and oven are original to the facility, and I think they're a little past their expiration. I think it's really important that we have a review of that kitchen because it serves people who are there 24 hours a day. This is not just a lobby where they have lunch. This really is a facility that is used all the time, and it also is where people go in critical emergencies. So if we did have a situation where we had law enforcement or leadership hold up an EMA for a significant period of time, that would become a public safety issue as well. So I think it's really important that we look at that facility and that we update it. Buying a refrigerator every several decades is not fiscal irresponsibility. In fact, I think it would be irresponsible not to address it.
Very good. Sir? No. Oh, I'm sorry. I will say the Emergency Operations Center is a facility near and dear to me. I used to be stationed there when I was just an employee with the county. But to your point, though, there have been activations of that facility for more than just training purposes. We had the large-scale lumberyard fire not so many years ago, the train derailment, the ice storms, I should say more correctly, are large-scale accidents out on Interstate 90, particularly in the Ruin Road area. So there's been bomb scares, and I will tell you, when COVID was starting to frame and we were trying to rally as to, okay, what are the next steps, that was our congregating point, and we very quickly then gathered our information and dispersed. But that facility very quickly became a protected facility because our dispatch center is located there, and only persons who needed to be there physically went there. So there's a number of assets. We've been obviously trying to do improvements to the HVA system there, to the generators, to the uninterruptible power supplies that power the entire building. That location is key to the overall operation of the Marks radio system. We're the prime site for this zone in the state of Ohio. The possibilities of the response in Lake County would be greatly diminished if that facility were to go offline. So something as simple as being able to warm or prepare a meal, that would be very important, and just a place to keep your lunch. So they're very, very modest asks, and I think that they're more than reasonable. So yeah, well said. Something, do you have further to say?
No.
I was going to comment, we, the three of us did have a nice informational visit to the Lake County General Health District. We got to see the mobile van, the bus, if you will, that was, basically looks like a Lake Tran vehicle, but purpose-built inside for a point of dispensing. So it's fully self-contained. The application there, I think, is pretty apparent. That's one of the things that we're hoping to ask the state of Ohio if they'd be kind enough to either requisition it to the health district or to the county EMA. That is an asset that I think could have some long-term benefit. I know that the health district has the radiological response vehicles for Perry should there be an incident, but this vehicle's new, it's in good shape. We did look it over. I will admit I found a missing lug nut there, so yay. So hopefully they've gotten that taken care of. I think that Commissioner Young, I don't know if I'm violating anything HIPAA here, so I'll let you say while you're on your tour if you want to share.
Oh, I got the shot. I got the shot. It was very kind of them to corner me in that room, tie me down, and give me a shot. It's all good. It's all good.
The level of integration with our fire departments, our hospitals, the nexus, if you will, of future planning, the storage facilities for vaccines, the redundancy of the storage facilities in the event of power failures, loss of one of the cooling units. It's pretty impressive. Our health district has really stepped up, and I think it goes without saying that their partnership with the Ohio Department of Health has been instrumental also in getting resources here, not only in a timely way, but keeping those supply chains, because I can remember our first couple of shipments. The first shipment was a whopping 500 vaccines, and the next week somebody calculated that we got too many, so they dropped it to 400, with a population of 234,000. So those were some very stress-filled days, and I believe that was about the same time that New York wasted more vaccine doses than the entire supply that came to the state of Ohio. Just to put things in a little bit of context, did either of you want to comment on the visit to the health district?
I would just say I was grateful for the opportunity to learn more about how the health district operates at their headquarters. Our health commissioner, Ron Graham, has really been an advocate for Lake County. I will admit I was initially a little standoffish. I was concerned because as a new commissioner, I was very troubled by the closure of businesses and the mask mandates that we endured in the past year. I didn't know whether our health commissioner would be an ally or a foe, but I found that he, while very committed to public safety, no doubt about it, that's his number one priority, was also committed to facilitating our business interests and maintaining individual freedoms, which is something I haven't seen from every health official in Ohio. So when we talk about local control, I think we're very fortunate to have that with our health commissioner, Ron Graham. And while once again maintaining the highest standards of safety for our county, he also fought for our businesses, for our individual rights and liberties, and even for the rights of the disabled, people who are not capable of wearing a mask safely due to breathing and other issues. It was really remarkable to see his commitment. So I'm grateful for the chance to tour his facility, and I think that the everyday residents who have no idea there is a health commissioner for Lake County should know that we have one and that he is a friend.
Good to know, good to know. On the other part of new business, anything further from either? You've heard us alluding to this as a sneak preview for several weeks now, and we do have just joining us here today Vanessa Clapp, our Chief Public Defender. I think it'd be fair to give a little bit of a preview of something that should be coming before this board for approval. We are looking at a program that will assist individuals in leading crime-free lifestyles as contributing members of society. I'm just going to kind of read some stuff here, just to, you'll see and hear this again in the future, but the new program is designed to assist individuals who had who had been in jail to return to their communities, to live productive, crime-free lifestyles, and to be involved in the community in in the criminal process. Basically, I'm going to be blunt. Bishop Roderick Coffey, forgive me if I'm a little bit emotional about this. His time with Begin the Conversation, and in his early days of saying, "Show me the data." I took up that challenge. He and I worked very closely together, taking a look at law enforcement and better understanding each other. My background, not only on the law enforcement but on the engineering service side, allowed me to, one, help him to better understand, but more importantly, allowing Bishop Coffey to educate me as to the needs and the curiosities and concerns of the greater community. And that was a very powerful partnership. Bishop Coffey, a well-known and respected senior pastor of Unity Community Church in Concord Township, was very passionate and committed to community involvement in the criminal justice system, and was one of the original members of Begin the Conversation. It's a group of leaders that formed almost 7 years ago to address race relations and the justice system in Lake County. This project, it's been quite a while in the works. This was not a response to recent civil unrest and concerns, but this will directly be addressing that. It's just another example of Lake County being out on the cutting edge. I don't want to do too many spoilers here. I believe we're going to be only the second community in the state of Ohio to have something similar. And we do have our resident expert, Vanessa. Would you care to give a few comments? But while she's walking up, I also want to say that this goes back to our earlier conversation. Faith Andrews, our clerk of courts, has generously offered to provide the seed funding from the certificate of title. She's going to be declaring excess funds, and this will allow the the public defender's office to begin this program, evaluate it. It will also be eligible for the state reimbursement for public defender activities. So this will be a fully sustainable program. Again, like anything else, it has to prove itself. But with that, Vanessa, if I could turn the meeting over to you on this point.
Thank you, Commissioner. I actually put up my finger to say you're for the only.
The only? What
county.
about Cincinnati?
Well, theirs, when I looked into it more, is not what we envisioned. It's different.
It's not as comprehensive?
It's not. So ours is more, and the Ohio Public Defender.
Yeah, we're going to have to change our press release now, right?
Right. I sent you an email about that when I realized that. Anyway, so the Commissioner gave you the background, and essentially Commissioner Hamerchuk and Bishop Coffey came to me before COVID, it was long before COVID, and said, can we do something with the community to involve them more in the criminal justice system? Is it something we could run through this office? Kind of a community liaison type position, I think they were thinking. And so I explored that option more. I did some research. I reached out to the Ohio Public Defender's Office in Columbus, which oversees the requirements of the public defender's offices, to see if this was even feasible for us to have at our office, and then thought more about the needs of my public defenders and of the clients and of the community, because we do serve the community. But then COVID came and we had to put it on hold. So essentially I'm coming back now asking you to consider this proposal for this new program called the Criminal Justice Community Engagement and Outreach Program. When I was thinking about how to develop it, I thought about my years in the court as a public defender, and something that always troubled me, and it was a gap that we had in our service. So as public defenders, we're appointed, normally we meet our clients at the arraignments or maybe at the first hearing. Occasionally we'll get calls from individuals who have been approached by police to come in for interviews or who have gotten themselves into trouble. They want a little bit of advice. But normally we first meet them then. We see them through the criminal process, and once their case is resolved in some manner, conviction, sentencing, dismissal, we're done with them. And my clients used to say, thank you, hopefully most of them, for your help, and I'd say, I hope I never see you again. And it's not because there was anything wrong with them, it's just I don't want them back. So at that point then, they were gone, as far as we were concerned. We had no authority or anything to offer them beyond that. So the gap that exists is that once they leave jail or leave our services, they're let back into the community. They go back into the community. By now, they have burned many of the bridges that they had before. Their families may have grown tired of them if they had families that supported them. Their friends, their employers, they want nothing to do with them. And so they go back into the community, and they're not able to get some of the basic human needs that we all have: housing, food, clothing. transportation. A lot of that's gone. Maybe their clothes have been thrown out with the landlord when they went to jail. So it was always a gap that we had and something that we were never at the Public Defenders able to really do much help. We would refer to different social services that were available, but it felt like there needed to be more involvement. So that is one of the shortfalls that this program would address, is addressing the needs of our clients when they're no longer part and involved in the criminal justice system. They may be on probation, but they're no longer in jail and they need help so that they don't come back. Because if we release them from jail into the community without support, then they end up in the same situation they were before and they end up back in jail. So the hope is we can reduce those recidivism rates, and it will be true when I say I hope I never see you again as a lawyer in court. The other thing that this program could do is some community outreach. Certainly during COVID, that wasn't possible, but we've discussed having forums and clinics perhaps out in the community to address things such as sealing of their criminal record. Once folks have a criminal record, it's difficult to get a job, and if we can seal those records for them, if they're eligible, if we can work with them, then that would help them. Also, their driver's licenses are often suspended or maybe even totally gone, so we have to help them with that so that they can get out there and drive to the employment that hopefully they'll be able to find. The other thing is the program would link us to some of the agencies that are out there that we're not as connected with, and I think that would be important, the social service agencies. And then should some issues arise in the community, I think it would be a way to address some of those questions that the community might have about the criminal justice system. So that is what the program's about. There was in Montgomery County, they have a social worker that does some of this stuff for them. At that Public Defender's Office, we have a social worker, and his job is to help our clients, many who have mental health issues or drug and alcohol issues, to get treatment so that we can offer alternative to the judges for something beyond prison or extended jail sentences. But his plate is full, and he's never been able to fully address that. Montgomery County has their social worker that they have from within the agency going out. My idea was to bring a community member who has the right connections into our office so that we're bringing the community in to help assist us with our clients and our cases. Ultimately, if our clients get out and they don't return and they're working, families are happier, they're happier, the community benefits, their wealth grows. It's just a good thing in the end. So that's the genesis for the program.
And just a little bit more, if I could add, though. Very early on in your new position as the public defender, you had Chief Public Defender Young, Mr. Young, no relation, I believe,
Right.
come speak to the commissioners, and Commissioner Serino, Young, and myself. One of the things we were looking at is, again, effective defense, proper funding of the Public Defender's Office, working in good faith. Although we have a strong working relationship with our prosecutor's office, we also want to have a strong working relationship with Public Defender. And we were looking at possibilities. And that's where we started to say, hey, there's some connections here. And you worked very closely with Bishop Coffey and I, then Pastor Coffey, I believe. Your insights, your willingness to make these connections. You see a need, how can we fill that need by making connections? And your application and your application of your art was exceptional, and I really look forward to seeing this program coming before us next week for approval, and I hope that the Coffey family can also join us. This is something tremendous, and I'm excited to hear that we're the only ones. So that's pretty cool.
We will be the first ones if it goes through. They've asked me to present in October at the the statewide county public defenders program meeting about it, so that others might join us.
So yet another example of where best practices do not exist, we create them. How's that?
I like that.
Thank you for being such an excellent partner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Young, Commissioner Young, no relation to Chief Defender. Anything you want to add, sir?
Is this program modeled after any other program in the country? Or is it simply something that we came up with based upon our needs here in Lake County?
It's based upon our needs in Lake County, but also what I did was explored what we have around the state and around the country to see what folks have. Often they just have a social worker, not just a social worker, they're very important, but they'll have a social worker going out into the community or trying to make connections. So this one, I think, builds upon that concept, and I thought it was uniquely what we need here. It's something that I've noticed through 30 years at the Public Defender's Office, that we can't help these people. I walk out of the courthouse and that's it. We need to do more.
Yeah.
So
it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Fletcher?
Mr. President, if I could say for context, I'm really grateful to our county prosecutor's office, to Prosecutor Colson, for making sure that we have a victims' rights, a group, victims' rights advocates, who work with them throughout the legal process. Obviously, the prosecutor takes the case to the courts, but as our public defender notes, there's a lot more to a case and getting the best outcome for each person than just the legal motions and the filings. And just as we need victims' rights advocates for the innocent and even those who've made mistakes, we also need an advocate who can help them through that process. So I view the public defenders as following our prosecutor's lead in a really innovative way in providing this service, and I'm grateful to be a small part of increasing access to justice.
Thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so more exciting things. In the interest of time, I'll forego discussions of the County Commissioners Association activities. We did have a number of meetings, but we'll talk about that another time. Our second public comment. Is there any other new business? Okay, with that, we are now at our second public comment portion. Do we have anyone wishing to address this board in our second public comment portion? No takers. And Jason Boyd, County Administrator, do we have any electronic submissions? Jason Boyd indicating none. Very good. All right, well, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And under discussion, out of respect to those who may be tuning in, because we do have a work session that is scheduled at 11:30. We've already well run into that time. We'll just leave the feed up, if I may, just to technical. We will take a brief recess because at our age we need to do those things. So with that, we'll roll into our work session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. And if I could just read, we have a work session today, June 10th, 2021, scheduled at 11:30. We'll be joining that time already in progress. Although we had it scheduled for the Lake Erie Conference Room, it is adjacent to this chamber, so we'll remain here. We'll keep the feed up. And the topic of discussion is going to be Lake County Jail Planning and Finance Work Session. The Lake County Board of Commissioners will be in attendance. No action will be taken at this section. So with that, we're just going to take a brief time out. If anybody needs to walk across the hall, I think we'll do that. We'll come back here just in a few short moments.
Suzanne, quick
So we'll
question.
just leave the feed
I
up.
did
Thank
go to
you.
the website just to double check, and there are actually 2 numbers listed for the hotline. Yes.